Hi guys, and welcome to A Dark Soul. Today we're gonna talk about a very serious topic. I know holiday season is approaching, and sometimes it can get a little much for us as for our dogs. And that's when things like a dog suddenly showing aggressive tendencies is happening. And that's our topic for today. Why is a dog showing aggressive tendencies suddenly? I'm Anita, I'm a professional dog trainer. I show you how to build a trusting relationship with your dog to overcome fear and reactivity and have a good time together again. And if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe. And now, stay tuned and have fun. Alright, so as I said, holiday season could be a trigger for our dogs showing aggressive tendencies. But why is that? I mean, shouldn't this be a time to calm a little down, take a step back, breathe, and just relax and be together and enjoy each other's company? Yes, that would be perfect. And I'm sure that going at it that way would not trigger any aggressive behaviors or any stress related things. But very sadly, or so I think, has our culture developed a really stressful habit in this quiet period. We run around like crazy. We have to buy presents last minute. We have to visit people we don't care about the whole year, but now it's mandatory because, well, it's just something we have to do for whatever reason. And the whole thing becomes a stressful marathon towards Christmas. And then in my country, it's very common that after Christmas, family visits start. So 25th, 26th, and it's again just running around, just trying to get from one appointment to another and then back home and either take the dog with you or not or whatever. And everything is very out of the norm, very out of routine. And then New Year's Eve is approaching, so another stressful thing. And sometimes this can get too much for our dogs. And if we are stressed out, we do not have as much patience as we normally do. And that's the same thing for our dogs. If our dogs are stressed out, they aren't as patient and they might react a little more intense and faster to something we do or something somebody else does. Okay? Another thing is, and that's happening in cold areas more often than in warm areas, is that in wintertime we have pain issues because some dogs just aren't dressed properly, so they would need some kind of jacket or a sweater or something like that that keeps them warm because they are small or they have no undercoat or for whatever reason get cold. But we humans don't realize it fast enough, and that's when muscles cramp up and pain issues arise, right? And whenever a dog is in pain, again, we have less patience and the dog is more reactive. That can mean that he's reacting faster or stronger to something. And that's especially when we are about to touch the dog and the dog is worried that we might touch an area that's hurting. Okay? But let's jump to the question of, is it suddenly, for a moment? Because we have other reasons and we will talk about them, but suddenly is often not that suddenly. Okay? Dogs are showing so many smaller or bigger signals all the time. And maybe you know the saying, you cannot not communicate. And this is to a very high percentage body language. And most of the time, we could see that the dog is already getting uncomfortable and trying to tell us, I'm not fine with this. And sometimes we just oversee it because we are doing something else, we are multitasking, and just absentmindedly touch the dog. Or we walk past the dog and don't even look at him because we are doing that all the time and it's never an issue. But now the dog is stressed or cold or hurting or whatever, just a little more tense maybe, and suddenly it is a problem for him, and he tried to tell us while we were approaching, but since we weren't looking at him, he has to tell us a little more direct, and that's when we see aggression. And what do I mean by aggression? It's not always biting, but I would say there are two ways of seeing aggression. Biologically, aggressive behavior is everything that an animal can show to increase distance. And the other definition would be everything that strikes us as dangerous. So those two can be very different from each other, and most of the time we only react to growling, snarling, snapping, and actual biting. But there are so many things before that. So calming signals, for example. Our dog is trying to avoid conflict, and if we see it at a time when our dog is still showing calming signals, so licking the lips, averting the eyes, turning the head away, turning the body away, things like that, we could avoid conflict and we could avoid our dog slipping into aggression. But again, life happens, and sometimes we aren't alert because we are used to our dogs tolerating certain things or being fine with certain things, and sometimes they are just not. And the reasons behind this, we had already two, and that was a higher stress level and pain. Of course, pain can always be everywhere and can be dormant for a very long time and then just arise again. And it's sometimes really difficult to find out if the dog has some kind of pain issue, because sometimes they don't like to show it, or they don't show it at the vet's office or whatever. But if your dog is showing a drastic change in behavior, especially towards aggression, I would recommend getting him checked out. But there are other reasons, and the biggest one is that we are testing our dog's patience. And with we, I don't necessarily mean the caregiver, I mean every person the dog meets. So sometimes it's just a very unusual situation outside. So we are walking our dog, and then we are coming towards a narrow spot, and we park the dog to let people pass, and while they are passing, they just reach out and touch the dog on the head. This is something that happens so very fast, we can't react, and the dog might just get startled and snap because it's very uncomfortable. He didn't expect this to happen because normally people don't do that. And he is showing a strong reaction to it. And sometimes, especially in holiday season, when we take the dog with us to meet a gazillion people or have a lot of visitors suddenly, and we can't have our eyes on the dog and people interacting with the dog all the time. It's very inhuman. So it might happen that people don't act appropriately toward the dog. Not because they are bad or because they are unfriendly on purpose or whatever. It's just that we are primates and we act very differently than our dogs. And our show of affection is very different from what dogs would do. So this is where just two species are not really interacting very well with each other. And yes, we can try to teach the people, don't do this, don't do that, or better even, if you want to interact with the dog, act this way or that way or whatever. And if you have considerate people who listen to you, then this would be great to avoid any kind of tension between dog and human. But sometimes people are not listening. For whatever reason, it can be so many reasons. And then we have to protect the dog. And of course the people. So if we know we have people in our environment that we want to have contact with, but aren't fine with the dog or are just not acting appropriately for the dog, we have to take additional safety measures. I'm not talking about a muzzle, because with a muzzle, the dog cannot bite, yes, but people can still overwhelm the dog, do stuff to the dog he doesn't like, and all those things. So this would not be enough. What we can do is we provide the dog with a safety area where nobody can bother him, either because they just cannot enter this zone, closed door, or something like that. Or they would listen if you tell them if the dog is in there, he doesn't like to interact, and please leave him alone. But this is something the dog really has to learn. It's sometimes very difficult, especially for friendly dogs, because they want to interact with people, but then get overwhelmed. So they have to learn how to be in a relaxation zone or a safe zone in small steps and slowly increase distraction. So to sum it up, we have a few main reasons a dog can become aggressive suddenly, and that's a stress level that's too high, pain issues, of course that's also a stress level thing, and going over the dog's threshold. And all those things most of the time can be prevented when we listen to the small signals our dog sends us before starting to be more direct. Okay? So when things get stressful, try to take a step back once in a while, calm down, take the time also for yourself to get off your high stress level, because it's stressful for us as well if we do it this way. So take a step back, try to do something relaxing, and maybe even with your dog, and try to see if your dog is comfortable with all those things. And sometimes it's a better solution to leave the dog at home while visiting some relatives or friends or whatever, and the dog is fine staying home alone, or get somebody to be with him in that time. There is always a solution that keeps everybody safe and the stress level as low as possible. That said, don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a wonderful pre-Christmas experience and not a stressful one. Enjoy the holiday season. Until next time, bye!